What is truth? This is an important question, especially in our time when truth is contested. And one good place to start is to make a distinction between a word and a concept. A word is either sound waves in the air or signs written down, whereas a concept is the meaning that we attach to those words. So people can use the same word, truth, to express many different concepts or many different meanings with that same word. But that doesn't mean that truth is anything that people say. If somebody says that when I use the word truth, I mean a cat with a hat, that doesn't mean, oh no, now truth can mean even a cat with a hat. It just means that people use the same word in different ways. And nevertheless, we should be interested in the classical concept of truth, because there is a traditional way of understanding truth which has gone through history, and which is that concept is that to say truth means to say something that the world is in one way or another, and then the world really is in that way. So to say that the world is in a certain way and the world is actually that way, this is what the traditional concept of truth expresses. Even with that more traditional concept of truth, it is still contested, the details of that, but at least you can then tell people who use the word truth in a completely different way, okay, you're free to do that, we can discuss it in that sense if you want, but now I'm talking about the classical concept of truth, expressing how the world really is. Now, it is still a problem with the traditional understanding, and the most traditional theory of truth is called correspondence theory of truth, which says that there's a correspondence between, on the one hand, saying or thinking that the world is in a particular way, and then how the world actually is. There's this correspondence. And then the problem is what we talked about in the last video, that we can't get outside of our own mind. So how should we then understand this correspondence between what's in our mind, what we're saying or thinking about the world, and the world as it really is outside of the mind? Because if I want to say it's true that the chair is blue because I'm saying the chair is blue and the chair really is blue, when I'm talking about the chair really being blue, I'm still in my experience of the chair. I'm not at the chair outside of my own mind. So how should we then understand this correspondence between truth and world? There are some alternative truth theories that try to solve this problem. For example, the pragmatic theory, which says that, well, whatever works is true. But that's problematic because something could work without being true, or sometimes that which is true doesn't work very well. So there's an alternative solution that I suggest we should go for, which is to understand truth as coherence, or in terms of coherence. And coherence means to have a theory where the different parts are as well connected as possible. And the way to turn that into a truth theory is to imagine a mind as omniscient or all-knowing as possible, having access to as many data and as many experiences, etc., as possible, and then making the most coherent description of the world. So we should understand truth as the most, hypothetically, the most possible coherent description of the world, how everything is related to everything. That's a kind of solution where, on the one hand, we're still within mind, but we're imagining the best possible description that a possible mind could make of the world. And of course, that theory will only be the most coherent one if it's as close to the real world as possible, because otherwise, if it's able to describe all sorts of data and make it all fit well together, that gives us an excellent reason to believe that this is how the world really is, whereas it would be very difficult to make such a description if it was not how the world was. You can still say, well, couldn't there be some possible something that was not understandable for any possible mind in the world? And maybe it could, but then we have no reason to care about it if it's not possible for any mind to understand it. But we can relate to the most understandable presentation or understanding of reality and define that as the reality. There's no need to care about something that no mind can understand in any case. But this is a way of avoiding a lot of problems and a lot of objections against truth. Some will say, well, you can't give it a meaningful content, but here this is one way of doing it. They will say, well, reality can be inconsistent, etc. But here the idea is that the world is everything that exists, and so the sum of everything that exists is necessarily one, and truth is the most coherent description of this one reality. And reality is just the different states of affairs being what they are, relating to each other as they do. That can't be inconsistent. Only our descriptions can be inconsistent. But then truth will be the most coherent description. This does not mean that we have certain knowledge today. Of course, we may be wrong. The future can prove that we're wrong. But that is the case for anyone. It is still the best we have, and it does give us a lot. It gives us a meaningful goal to stretch against, and it gives us a method, the coherence method that I will be describing more in the next video, that we can use in order to strive against or towards truth. And you can say, well, isn't our language limited? Isn't our mind limited? Yes, but we don't know what the limits of the mind are. It can expand, we can learn more. Language expands all the time. It has an infinite potential for just expanding more and more. So we have this meaningful goal to work towards, and we have good reasons to say that there are many things that are false, because they are inconsistent, or we can say that we have much better reason to believe these and these theories that are more coherent than these other theories. So, of course, someone might say, well, science, and if you have a very coherent theory, it could still be wrong, absolutely, but so can the conspiracy theories you found on the internet, etc. And it's much more likely that they are wrong. So you have no reason to believe in a theory that is less coherent or not as good justified as another theory. You should go for those which are the most justified. Someone will say, well, we all have access to truth just from our perspective, with our limited minds. We are like blind people standing at different places related to an elephant, discussing what the elephant is like, and then someone will either be skeptical and say we cannot say anything true about this elephant, or there will be relativists saying that each opinion about this elephant is just not any better than anyone else. But what we should say is that there is a truth about the elephant. It is the most coherent description possible of the elephant, is the truth about the elephant. And if these blind people talk to each other and share experiences and develop theories about an elephant, they can have a good and well-justified opinion of what the truth about this elephant is. So I think that even if we might still be wrong, this is a way of understanding truth, where it's meaningful to strive for truth, and where many objections against truth can be dismissed. You can have a good reason for having truth as an important goal, and it is, and especially in these times where so much depends on how we relate to climate or vaccines or wars and etc. It's important to have some clear understanding of what truth is, and what we can do and what we can't do, and what we have good reason to do. And so that's what I tried to present in this video, and more details will follow in the next one.